I really like this quote: the degree to which you are able to master intellectually the process of communication with other human beings will be the degree to which you expand your potential to succeed as a citizen of a Western society. Communication, it's very important, particularly in a time where almost all of our communication, or at least a larger portion, is online. And so it's more important to be able to communicate in a clear and a concise manner. And the settings that I'm going to talk about are professional settings, such as profiles on LinkedIn, when you're filling out job applications, writing thank you notes after those job applications, and inter-office emails. They all represent who you are, and it's the first impression someone gets of you when they see your writing. And this quote from the American APA is, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And particularly with your writing, you don't, because in person, when you meet someone, you have 7 seconds to make an impression. Your writing is 2 seconds. Somebody judges your writing as soon as they look at it. It's yours now, and now is Matt.
All right. So can anybody think of a time where maybe you're writing every day? Anyone? You can talk to me. It's okay. Texting? All right. Yep. Twitter. Anything else? Come on, I know there's more. Maybe some of these look familiar. Probably use a lot of these. Now, I found these icons here, and I know maybe 3 of them because I'm kind of old. Does anybody here know what all of those are? Or even half of them? All right, so what do we have?
First row, I don't.
I think that one's Vimeo. Yep.
The orange B is blog.
All right, we have WhatsApp,
Yeah, and then
Facebook,
Facebook,
LinkedIn.
and then,
Yeah.
yeah, and then Yahoo, Skype, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, Instagram, DeviantArt, Google Plus, and such.
Good work. I wish I had a prize for you. Pretty impressive. The point I'm trying to make is all of these are places where you have potential to be writing. Even in something like YouTube or Vimeo, you know, we leave comments on there. There's conversations that go back and forth. So it's everywhere. And here are a couple rules. And when I use the word rules with social media, that's a pretty loose term because it's social media. Let's be honest, there are no rules. But these are things that maybe you want to keep in the back of your head as you start to write on things, as you think about commenting. They're ideas that can help bring people in, help engage, and help add something meaningful to the noise. Because let's be honest, there is so much coming at us all the time. There's so much we're seeing, there's so much, you know, we're contributing to. So these are things that can just kind of help make your writing more engaging and bring people in a little bit more. And this was done by the Social Metrics, and they're an independent group who tracks social media posts, they track responses, they track how many times things are viewed. So they have a good handle on what makes something effective and what draws people in and makes them want to take a look at it. So the first one is, let's make the conversation meaningful. If you go in there, a lot of times it's easy to just want to throw out whatever you're thinking, just put it out on there. But if you can actually take time to evaluate and think about whether or not this conversation adds anything, if it's something that will make people want to read it, and if it's something that's worth putting out there, then maybe we could do that. Otherwise, you run the risk of just adding to the noise of what we're seeing every single day, just adding to that bombardment we get of just constant text and writing. The next one, keep it real. You know, sometimes it's easy to want to post about things that we might not necessarily know about, might not be really an expert in, but keep it true to who you are and what you know about. You know, put things out there that you're interested in, that excite you, because people want to know who you are. This is This is your presence online. This is who you are outside of a physical person. So just keep it who you are. Make it conversational. You know, social media is great because it's not like before when you would just send something written on a sheet of paper and there's nothing to get back. Social media gives you the chance to have a conversation back and forth. You can write something, you can put it out there, and be ready to respond to it because people might have questions, they might have comments. Which is going to bring us to the next point. Mind your manners. You know, we've all seen those heated debates that get on there, that get in Facebook, that kind of revert to name calling. It reverts to just inarticulate arguments that tend to be sometimes inappropriate. But if you keep your cool, if you mind your manners, it can be a lot more engaging and it can be a lot more worthwhile. Engagement and enrichment. This may seem a bit like making it meaningful, but when you have something that's really important to you and something that you really want to put out there, keep in mind, is this going to benefit anybody? You know, is this going to be helpful? Is this, for lack of a better phrase, is it going to make the world a better place? And these types of things can really go a long way to make your writing more engaging and go a long way to making people want to follow you and invest in the time that you're putting in there. Oops, we got a little bit out of order, but quality over quantity. Sometimes you have that point you just want to make and you get right onto your keyboard and you just start typing away. You just start throwing words up there. Sometimes extra words can actually be detrimental to your point. If you can make it clear, if you can make it easy for people to read, it's going to be more likely that they are going to invest into it. And also, don't write in a way that you normally wouldn't write or you normally wouldn't speak. Adding extra language just for the sake of adding extra language doesn't do much for the point. But if you do get to the point where there is a lot of detail, there is a lot going on with what you want to say, maybe we can consider some of these longer form mediums, such as blogs. You know, Facebook, Twitter, things like that are not set up for long, detailed posts. Because when you're going through your Facebook, let's be honest, who here stops and reads the really long ones where you have to click the more link? Anybody? Depends on who they are. All right. But you've probably established a relationship with the person at that point. Or it's somebody you probably know, I'm guessing, rather than just a random post. I don't know who said that. It was hard to see. Anyway, but what you can do is you can use Facebook, you can use Twitter to link to these blogs. If it's something that interests someone and they want to know more about it, they might be more proactive in actually seeking out what you're talking about. And the final one, have fun. You know, it's personal. You're showing personality. You are having conversations. Enjoy it. If you don't enjoy what you're writing, people aren't going to enjoy reading it. So now on to Ellie. We're going to talk about how we can manage some of these longer things and make it a little bit easier for us to break down and look at and actually read.
Okay. As Matt said, our brains do work in such a way where we look at something and we break it down into something that's manageable, into units that we can understand. And that goes for conversations, lectures, the written word. I mean, how many of you have ever had a conversation with someone and they just keep blathering on, and you're just like, you check out. You're just kind of looking at them and going, yeah, okay. Well, this goes for your writing. So what you want to do is you want to make your writing more concise, so that people will take the time to read something. Like Matt said, the Facebook. If you look at that and it's just this long, big chunk, you're like, I don't really know if I want to read that because it's really long. Like this right here. This is kind of a little it'll be a quick exercise. This here is actually something I took off with permission from LinkedIn. And it was written all together in this format. And particularly with writing, if you look at that, it's just a big blob. Do you actually want to take the time to read something like that? Do you think your potential employer is going to take the time to try to pick out the information you want them to see? Because you're selling yourself, right? Does everybody know what LinkedIn is? I'm sorry, I should have asked first. LinkedIn is a professional site where you can link with other people for free to a certain point in your professional field. It's kind of like you have a resume out there and people look at it. So it's like having an online resume, but it's a little bit more because you can make connections at like people that are going to the same school you are, people that are in the same area that you're wanting to work in. So that is an example of what you do not want to do. So what we're asking you to do is maybe write down a few things on how you would make that presentable. You can work in a group, you can work by yourself, just a few minutes to make some notes, and then I'm going to ask a few people what they came up with.
Does anyone need a pencil? I'll get one. Looks like everyone has something to write with.
And then if you need the paper at the end of the session to write the information down for the envelope, you can take more. You can just put it on the floor, it's fine.
Feel free to discuss with each other. This isn't a test, so you can
Yeah, this is
actually
just-
talk and look at each other's papers.
What would make that so that you wanted to read it? Or if you were going to put that out there and that was your information on the resume side.
And if you have any questions for us, feel free to ask along the way.
And keep in mind that with writing, that potential employer is going to take 2 seconds to look at that and decide if they want to read that information or not. So what skill have you learned in your writing classes already would you want to use to make that into something more coherent?
So how many people here, when they see just a long block of text, skim through it, or just kind of, yeah?
Most people do, yeah.
Or do you all read everything you see in depth? Exactly. So that's also the type of thing you want to think about when you're writing. Because if you do it, there's a possibility the person going through these resumes and these profiles might do the same thing. Because they have a stack that big sitting on their desk that they have to get through. So it's something you can think about as you're evaluating this too. What do you want to stand out and jump out?
Because I believe it was last year, at least a few people I talked to, hiring professionals, said that there was anywhere from 50 to 100 people looking for a job, any particular job. So you would want to stand out. You would want them to go, you don't want them to go, oh, he said they do this, nope, I can't read it, I can't read it, I can't read it. And then they narrow it down to the ones they really want to look at. So you want them to really want to look at your resume or your information.
I see some people still
Writing,
writing and
okay.
reading, so a couple more minutes. Releasing is good, so you can take your time. Rush through it. Yeah. Right along where we're at. Do we still need a few more minutes? We all about there? Okay.
Okay, can I have a volunteer on what you would have done to this writing to make it more readable? Anyone?
Should we bring one of the microphones to him? Yeah, there is one up here.
Because we would really like your feedback on this.
Anyone? Okay, all right. Do you want me to hold it or do you want to hold it? You don't like that I'm giving you a microphone, do you?
Okay. So I said first take the most important parts of the paragraph and then hone in on those and condense the things that don't matter. Use articulate but precise words that are short and to the point, and then put the most important info first and end with something that makes you stand out.
Awesome. So
Awesome.
what was one of your examples of maybe something that was most important? Just picking one of the details out of there.
Probably their education, because that's what's most considered when going for a job.
Awesome. Now, did you guys see how easy that was? So anybody else want to offer up some suggestions too? Come on. You're all writing away so fervently and now you don't want to share? Anybody? I'll start picking people. Come on. Or should we just have Ellie walk you through it? Take a look. Yeah, I'm seeing some head nods. Okay, all right. If you want to
I
be
really-
shy, that's all right. Oh, wait.
No, I really liked what you had to say. That actually fits in with, okay, and this is all the information, the same information. We're not changing anything. We want to have it in manageable chunks. So this chunk is you're saying something about yourself. This person is saying, I'm highly focused and I'm a driven individual. So they would read that. The second one, being a volunteer at Mercy Health St. Mary's. It all depends on the job you're looking for also, how you would segment these. For this job applicant, being a volunteer and having experience at a hospital was highly valued. So they would want to make sure that they put that in one of the chunks. And then internship, that shows experience. So it's almost like what you do already. It's like, that's almost like a topic sentence, which your paragraph used lately is going to be about.
So how many of you have ever thought, why do I need to figure out a topic sentence for my paragraph? Or are you all just great writers, perfectly putting it through there and just listen to the professor and say, yes, that's what I need to do? I saw a hand over here. So here's one of the ways just in everyday life you could use that, and now you have that skill to do it. You may have been going through that exercise thinking, what am I doing here? And so now we're giving you kind of some practical application for that.
And then this transitions. How many times have you thought, why do I need to learn transitions? I'm not going to write a paper when I'm out of college. Again, at the end, this allowed me to learn more about the compliance practices of the organization, quality improvement, and then here's where I like what you said. something about yourself, even though it starts with both it's like a summary almost. Both my internship and my extensive volunteer experience have allowed me to enhance my professional skills in areas such as teamwork, diversity, awareness, and professionalism. That is the same thing that we just looked at. And that's how you would want to present it on social media, LinkedIn, or any other site that takes your resumes and you're supposed to just like a little blog about yourself. Because they will see that I am highly focused, I'm a volunteer, I did an internship, I attended quality improvement meetings, whatever's important for whatever field you're in. And then summing it back up, I have skills in professional skills in these areas. So I would be more apt to read that, would you not, than that whole chunk of information. And all we did is separate it. Again, that's that information. And according to a talent acquisition manager at Spectrum that I know, which is basically a hiring manager, they just call them talent acquisition managers now. Effective communication is one of the most important interpersonal skills, or soft skills is what they call them. It's not something that you can like prove through an education. It's most sought after, but it is on the decline. Emails, as Matt said before, people don't know how to do professional emails. They look good on their resume, but once you start doing emails, they don't know how to write them. And I'm gonna let Matt take over now.
Okay. So at some point, I have a feeling that all of you would maybe want a job. No? No? Yes? Yeah. All right. So that's the goal here. And then social media is becoming used a lot more throughout business. It's not something that you just use personally anymore. How many of you are currently working? Oh, wow. So we have a good majority. Now, have any of you been asked by your bosses to participate in some sort of social media? No? Yes? You have a hand over there? What kind of site do they ask you to go on to? What are you using?
I work at a daycare and they have like a Facebook page that they like us to like share their stuff so that one can see it.
Okay, awesome. Now, when you go for that account, do you share things the same way you do on your personal ones, or do you tailor things a little bit differently? A little bit differently? All right. What about you guys? What do you think? Can you write exactly the same way you do on your personal pages as you would on a work page? No? Anybody think yes? And I'm not here to say you can or can't. And we're going to go through some of the things that were laid out by Gretchen Bullen. She's a professional blog writer, and these are observations that she's noticed within professional social media pages. And she went through and evaluated ones that she felt were effective and ones that she felt weren't effective. And the ones that seemed to have the most traffic, the most interaction, shared a lot of these characteristics here. And the biggest thing when we're doing this is we're showing personality. This isn't just an employee handbook. This isn't an informational pamphlet. This is social media. It's social. So there is an aspect where you have to be a personality within this. You're not just a robot who's spitting out facts and information. So one rule, and again, I'm using this word rule here, but it's just something to think about you're going through here, is you do want to be professional. And this is probably one of the biggest differentiations between your personal accounts and between ones that you would have for business. A good rule of thumb here is if you wouldn't say it, if you wouldn't do it in a professional environment while you're at your job, it's probably not appropriate on the social media page. I know sometimes we get behind that screen, we feel we're a little anonymous and we feel a little invincible and can say whatever we want, but you want to keep that professional. And this is probably about as strict as I'm going to get with these rules. These next ones are going to be a little more fun. share your true interests. You know, especially as we get out here, is anybody hoping to own their own business? Anyone? We got someone back here. Okay, so we're kind of, yeah. Yep. So when you're on there, you're most likely going to utilize some sort of social media because it's cheap, it's easy to do, it doesn't require huge teams of people to get marketing out there. One thing you can do to make them more enjoyable is share some of your interests. It might be directly related to your job, or it might be loosely related, but it's something that you're passionate about. And again, like we talked about in the earlier rules, which some of these will look the same, some of these will mirror a little bit, but if you're interested in it, it's going to be more interesting to people. And I'm sure you've probably heard that from your professors when you write about a topic. Huh? Nobody? No one's ever heard that? Yeah, it's more interesting if it's something that you enjoy. Add your voice to the business. Now, when I say add your voice, you're a person, you have a physical presence when you're in a company, and there's something about you that made your boss want to hire you. Well, you can use that same personality, and you can put that personality in with your social media pages. It doesn't have to be all technical writing and precision and just throwing everything out there. You can have some fun with it. You can kind of show who you are, because if you're liked in person, you're probably going to be liked online as well. Show a sense of humor. You know, people like to laugh. I don't think there's anybody around here who just really hates laughing. So you can use a little bit of humor in with there. But this one is one you have to be careful with, because there's a fine line between funny and offensive. And so this comes back to if you have a joke, if you see something that you want to share, if you wouldn't be comfortable sharing it in your professional environment, then don't share it on social media. Because this is a representation of who you are, and it's a representation of your company. And this is a big one. This is one that they said was probably the biggest as far as creating something that people want to come to, and it's respond to all comments. When you get out there and you start working, there will be Facebook pages, and when you like a Facebook page, anybody can post on it. And there may be times where you have a customer that's unsatisfied who may be upset about it. You know, we have websites that are dedicated to that whole idea, like Yelp. You know, it's a way that people can evaluate a business and a place without having to go there first. People feel like it's taking a risk away. And if you have somebody who's upset, just ignoring them is probably not going to make things better. They'll feel invalidated, and in turn that might make them more angry. But a lot of times you can respond, you can diffuse things. Another thing is, a little term I'm going to throw out here, going viral. Everyone heard of it? Yeah. So it is so much easier to do online now. When before you had to share things with each person and everybody that you know, it probably didn't go much further outside of your circle. But if somebody grabs a hold of something, there's a potential for it to just take off. And if you don't address these comments, that's a very real possibility. So things we want to remember is to write authentically, you know, keep your voice. You're a person. Remember that you're a person, and write in a way that lets people know that you're a person and not just a robot throwing little things out there. Your online presence reflects who you are. It's not just a string of words. It's not just blocks of text. It's you expressing yourself. And that's really important to keep in mind as you go through and as you're typing more in personal and professional settings.
I'd like to add to that.
Absolutely.
Particularly has anyone Googled themselves? Okay.
Did you like what you saw?
Yeah.
All right.
Good. But just remember that your employer can Google you too, or your potential employer. So you want things out there that even if they are less professional and more personal, they still have that element of being well-written and a little bit of professional to it. Does that make sense? Because I've Googled my kids and I've been surprised. So I'm like, hey, look, do you know? Google, look what you can see about you. So I would definitely remember it, and don't have anything out there that you wouldn't want an employer to see.
Or your grandma.
Has
Has anyone heard the grandma rule? If your grandma would be upset by it, maybe you shouldn't put it on there.
Yeah.
How many of you knew that employers can check Facebook pages, can check anything that's out there? All right. How many of you have anything, and maybe you don't want to answer this, but something that you wouldn't necessarily want an employer seeing? I see some nods. No need to raise your hand on this one. So keep that in mind. And it is a controversial subject right now. Sometimes employers are using it to weed out whether or not this person is somebody that they want to hire. It's there, it's public. Even if you're on a private setting, remember, you don't own those servers. The people who host those servers do own it. So make sure if you want to put something in there that you're not too sure about, that you look through those privacy agreements.
That would be a better conversation to do over the phone and not have it on the online presence.
Right. Make your writing readable and user-friendly. And that's what that exercise was designed to do. It was the same exact information. Nothing was cut, but all we did was broke it apart and made it so much easier for somebody to go through there and pick out the important contents. You gave those subject lines on every one of your paragraphs, and that's going to make your accomplishments stand out a lot better than if they're just buried within the text. And remember, most importantly, that the writing skills you're learning in the classroom do transfer to what you're doing right now, for both the workplace and on social media sites. You may think something like a summary is not something you'll ever use. But again, if you start moving into blogs, you can summarize what you're talking about on those shorter forms. You can use that summary to draw people in, to interest them. We talked about the topic sentences already. And you know what? Even that word that nobody likes to hear, thesis. It's something that you can put in even your social writing to keep yourself on track, to keep you from rambling, to keep you from going on. And so these are all valuable skills that you're learning right now that you'll be able to pull through even if you're not a writer. Does anybody have any questions for us? And don't be shy. No? All right, well, you guys blew through that writing exercise, so it looks like we'll give you a little bit of extra time between sessions. So, and if you want to come up afterward too and ask anything, feel free to do that. But enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and thanks for coming out here.
Thanks.